Hello and welcome. You're viewing the Citizens Journalist podcast, Mesa County Compass, that brings you the news that you can use from a different point of view. I'm Ruth.
I'm Lisa.
And together we are Mesa County Compass. Our goal is to create an informed, current, active citizenry armed with the facts. We will be covering what's new to you, what it means to you, what you can do about it, and provide you access to the decision makers when we can. Welcome to Mesa County Compass. This afternoon we're having Lou Webb as our guest again, and we've got some new questions to ask him. So welcome, Lou.
Well, thank you for having me, ladies. I am excited to be here.
So we need to get started on what brought you back to Grand Junction, number one.
Right.
Okay. And where are we going from here?
Well, I came up yesterday from La Plata County, where we live, and it was interesting coming over Red Mountain in a snowstorm. That's always fun. But yeah, no incidents, and got here to Grand Junction and went to the Republican Women's Luncheon.
Nice.
And that was really quite a bit of fun, and got to talk to the people there, and that was a good time. And then I drove up to Craig and was able to speak to the GOP Central Committee there in Craig, and then one of the gals on the Central Committee was also, I think, the chairman of the Republican Women's Group there, and they were having a meeting after that, and so she asked if I would stay and speak to that group graciously, and I was able to do that and enjoyed that very much. And then I drove back down here to Grand Junction, kind of burning the wheels off of my my truck, and spent the night here. And now I get to spend some time with y'all, and I'm happy to do that. And then after here, I go to Delta to talk to their GOP Central Committee tonight.
Very good. Just go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So on those central committees, do you have guests that are there too, or is it just the Central Committee that's...
Some of them have, guests. Some of them are just the committees, and different counties do things differently. So it's always kind of a surprise to find out what's happening at any individual committee meeting.
Exactly.
One of them was actually a Zoom.
Oh.
I went to Glenwood Springs, Garfield County, and their Central Committee was... Actually, I think it was the executive committee of their Central Committee, and they had a Zoom set up, so the other people were there by Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay.
Well, one of the things that we were kind of talking about a little bit before, so you've got these central committees, and you've got the idea of them endorsing certain candidates, and kind of a hullabaloo as to whether that's the role of any GOP committee to endorse a candidate. What's your opinion of that?
Well, this might sound self-serving, but I think the role of the Republican Central Committees at the county level is to support all of the Republican candidates that are running for the primary ballot, and until the people choose the nominee to run against the Democrat in the general election. And so any Central Committee, including the state GOP, I think is not doing their job, not fulfilling their responsibility by endorsing candidates before that primary election. And the most egregious violation of that, to me, is the state GOP, because they have come out and said that anybody that petitions onto the ballot basically is a second-class citizen, not worthy to be even acknowledged. Hope Scheppelman, the vice chair, wrote a kind of a scathing letter or post or whatever it was that I read that basically said that if you petition on to the ballot, you're pandering to dark money and to the rhino, your rhino saboteur. No, I can pull it up and read it to you. It's really unreasonable. And this is our state vice chair saying that. And yes, I petitioned onto the ballot. I petitioned onto the ballot because when I announced, I had 8 weeks from the time I announced to that CD3 assembly in Pueblo and the state assembly. And that was literally not enough time to get around to 26 counties in this giant congressional District 3 that is literally half the state of Colorado to meet all of those delegates so that I had some presence and relationship with those people when I spoke at the assembly. And add into that, like a week and a half after I announced, or actually announced on the February 6th, on February 13th, I had a total knee replacement. And that's no joke. That's not something that you just jump up from and start driving your truck around half the state of Colorado.
Right.
So I think that is wholly inappropriate for the GOP to endorse any candidate before the primary and the nomination is made by the people of who they want to go against the Democrat.
I have a question for you.
Yes,
Why
ma'am.
did you wait so long to announce? What brought that on, that you would come to that point?
Well, Congresswoman Boebert announced that she was going to leave her position in CD3 to run for CD4. I think she did that in January, maybe I think the very end of December actually, and I announced my candidacy like 5 or 6 weeks later. I had to pray about it. I had to have my wife's support and my family's support to do that. And it wasn't just a snap decision that I made the day after she announced that she was going to leave her seat, that I just said, oh, I'll run for it. I took some time to think about it, and I don't think 6 weeks is a lot of time to take
No,
to
it is
come
not.
to that conclusion.
That's a major decision.
It's a
and
major decision.
life change.
Right.
Yes. So that's why. And again, with 8 weeks, again, I think I announced on February 6th, and the state assembly was on April 5th, I think. So 2 months, 8 weeks. So I think I made the right decision. It was a pragmatic decision. Hey, if I had been, some of the other guys were going to primary Congresswoman Boebert, and they've been after this for over a year.
Right.
I wasn't going to primary Congresswoman Boebert. That wasn't on my radar. But doing it this way, it was totally pragmatic decision for me to petition because that made sense.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds fair. Well, we're going to go a little bit different. We'll do kind of national and then come back to local.
Yes, ma'am.
But nationally, what do you think of Mike Johnson's decision? And had you been in Congress, which way would you have gone? Would you say we want to recall him as speaker, or would you say, I understand why you made that decision? Because these are some of the kind of tough decisions that you're faced with. And how do you feel? Where do you stand on that?
That is a really good question, Lisa. It is also a really difficult question for someone that has not been in Congress to say that I know how that works or what I would have known about what was happening with the speaker and those kinds of things leading up to that. On the surface, it looks like, why'd you do that? But again, for me to just definitively say, well, I would do this or I would do that, I think I would have had to have been there to really definitively say what I would have done, again, from the surface.
To live a situation first before making a judgment.
That's not a cop out. I tell you, you know me. I tell you directly what I believe, and that's just one. On the surface, I would have said that doesn't make sense, but I don't know. Having been there, I might have seen something different. I doubt it, but I may have. Is that fair?
That is totally fair, and I think that that's reasonable. That you don't make a snap decision and say, I always vote with the party, or I always vote against the, whatever it is. You're looking at it and saying, I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know all of the little innuendos and what was the greatest good. Yeah.
You want to know, though, Lisa, what I will always vote for? America. I will always vote for those things that benefit America and American citizens. That's what I will vote for. Because I believe that that is what our Constitution demands in our representative form of government. That's what I will vote for.
Okay. Ruth, you want to take a shot next, or?
I will. I'm going to take a shot. This is something we hadn't discussed before. But I know how you stand on sending monies to foreign entities. How do you stand on sending money to Israel?
Oh, boy. That is a difficult question for me, because as a Christian, I believe that Israel are God's chosen. Having said that, the way their government has acted in various ways over the years and different leadership, men are making decisions, and I struggle a little bit with some of that with Israel. The biggest challenge that I have with sending money to Israel or Ukraine or spending money on any special interest is that we don't have any. We are almost $35 trillion in debt. Any money that we send to someone else, we have to borrow or print, which inflation devalues our dollar. So I just, currently, I don't want to send money to anybody or spend money on any special interest because we don't have any money. And that's...
Do you see a difference, though, in sending money to the Ukraine versus Israel, who is our ally and our strongest defender in that region?
If we had extra money, I would not... it's the one country that I would probably say that we might send some money to, and that's Israel. And again, that just comes from my faith. I just believe that Israel are God's chosen, like I said, and I think as a man of faith that puts Israel in a little different light than any other entity, ally or not. And I will
bless those who bless Israel.
Yes, exactly.
You kind of have some.
So I know that's a challenging question because I am staunchly opposed to spending money that we don't have, especially if it's on anything that isn't directly for American citizens.
Okay, that sounds fair.
It is.
Okay, I'm going to go back to local issues because one of the things that I thought was really interesting, we watched a video called A Letter to the Church in America. And one of the things that they kind of ended up with is your job isn't to worry about the outcome. Your job is to just do what's right.
Can I touch that for just a second?
Yes, you may.
I was taught that lesson by my father. Rest his soul. Lost Dad in 2017. But when I was a little boy, we went to see a movie. And after the movie, we pulled into a convenience store. I don't know if 7-Eleven was even a thing back when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, but it was a convenience store, and Dad went in. I think he went in to get a pack of cigarettes, if I'm not mistaken. But he came out and he had bought a sandwich and something to drink. And I was looking out the back window of the car at the time, and he went over, and there was a bum that was sitting, out on the side of the convenience store. And Dad gave the guy the sandwich and whatever it was to drink. Came back and got in the car, and as we're pulling away, I was looking out the back seat, or the back window. Excuse me. And I watched the guy opened up the sandwich, and he was like throwing parts of the sandwich away, and I said, Dad, that guy that you gave that food to is throwing it away. And my father, in his infinite wisdom, said, oh, son, that's not the point. That person has a right to do whatever they want to do with that. My job was to be generous. My job was to try to help someone. What they do with it is up to them. It's kind of like the gospel. Mm-hmm. Our job is to share the gospel. What someone does with the good news, that's up to them. Mm-hmm. But so the question that you were going to ask me about that's how I learned from my father about what you do with
Okay,
that.
So then, and this is an issue both locally, for us especially, because the city council is going to be looking for public comment coming up here in May, on the homeless situation. What is the difference between generosity, which is
individual,
and then versus the government's role in providing housing, interim housing for a large group of people, 2,500 in our case?
In Mesa County?
In Grand Junction.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. What's the difference? Because we have the same homeless issue.
There is a difference.
Okay.
There's definitely a difference.
And how do you handle it different? And how do you, if you disagree with how they're handling it, to make a difference, what do you do? Because that's the microcosm. You should have more ability to reach those local people than we would at a federal level. What do you do? What would you do?
The way I think things are supposed to work is that our government is supposed to do things with our money that benefit the collective. That's what our money is supposed to be spent on. That's where our preamble, when it talks about welfare, it calls it the general welfare, and it also uses the word promote instead of provide, secure, insure, establish. And so I think that anytime the government is going to spend we the people's money, they have to spend it on the collective. Generosity comes from individuals. And there are plenty of people that see homeless and can help. But that has to come from them wanting to do that. I think one of the difficult things that we have when it comes to homeless right now are two things. We have those people who, for either physical or mental reasons, cannot fend for themselves. As an advanced society, I believe it is incumbent upon us to try to help those people. That is a different thing than drug addicts. That is a different thing than people that are just lazy, that just don't want to work. In that case, those kind of folks, they'll get hungry enough to go to work at some point. And I'm sorry, I don't mean for that to sound inhuman or that I don't care about those people, but if you're making choices consciously that put you in a position that you're on the street, then you got to start making different choices. But as far as people that can't fend for themselves, I think that there's plenty of nonprofit organizations. There's plenty of people that are generous that can take care of those people. I don't believe that the government should make the unilateral decision to take we the people's money and spend it on that. That's not how I understand the government is supposed to use our dollars.
Right.
So in making a change in that, what options do you have?
You don't have the option of spending tax dollars on that. The only option you have is going to nonprofit and getting people that are willing to spend the money on that and support those homeless people. Another big problem that we have with homeless is the people that are just coming across our borders in droves and sticking their hands out. They come across the border with their hands out. We can't afford that. We don't have the money. We're in debt. We don't have the money for that. And yet somehow we can allow veterans to sleep on the street, but we can give illegal immigrants health care? That makes no sense to me. There's no common sense to that. But truly, if someone can't fend for themselves, they really can't, then we have to take care of them. Okay? And we can. We have that ability. There are, again, plenty of nonprofits that are philanthropic organizations that can do that.
And they have a heart for that.
And they have a heart for that. But we can't just have a city council or a county government or a state government that just says, hey, we're going to take your dollars and spend it on that. That's just not the way it's supposed to work, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah.
Very good. Well, I am going to switch horses completely in the middle of the stream.
Yes, ma'am.
I like the stream.
I'm going to go on to the Dolores River Project, which is in your area.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think about all of that coming to a monument status?
Well, I think that it is a federal government land grab of almost 500,000 acres, as I have seen it laid out. I think it is ridiculous that our government thinks that it can take we the people's land and create an area that we can't do certain things, recreational things that we have the right to do on our national land. Fish and hunt and mountain bike and ride four-wheelers and do those things. The government trying to make a national monument out of that. It's also interesting that the government, the outline of that national monument that they're proposing happens to encompass all of the areas where uranium would be mined, which, by the way, we now have the technology to mine uranium profitably that we haven't in recent years.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden our government, for some reason, doesn't want us to mine uranium. Now, they're picking and choosing winners, our government is. They're picking and choosing wind and solar as our energy sources, where one of the cleanest, most usable ways to... And cheapest to provide energy is nuclear. And that is not what's going to happen here. They're going to take that land. We're not going to be able to hunt and fish and bike and do the things we want on it necessarily. And we're not going to be able to take that resource, that element out that we could use to power our country.
And what I think is interesting is that I've heard that there are lithium deposits down there as well. And,
I have not heard that.
And other critical minerals.
Sure.
Yeah, the critical minerals that they need to make EVs with. What is up with that? It blows my mind, but that's neither here nor there. What about our water rights? And what about the Ute Indian Mountain Tribe?
Well, it's interesting because the Ute Mountain Utes have a uranium processing place on the res. I don't think it's in very good repair, but they have rights.
Mm-hmm.
They have rights. Also, the Southern Utes and the Ute Mountain Utes. I'm not sure if the Utah Utes or whatever that tribe is called have them, but they also have hunting rights on that proposed land grab national monument.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't just trample on those. And there's also I believe it's the Bruno Treaty on the western slope that is part of that. And I think there's some issues with the land use that would kind of do this with that treaty as well. So it's just, guys, this is all part of that, in my mind, that 30 by 30 kind of thing. That's our land.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We, the people, get to use that. Now, I understand in the Antiquities Act, in the way something, if there's like, what was it? What was the first one? Devil's Towers or something, I think, if I remember correctly. And, that's like 1,300 acres or something like that takes that one spot and says we're going to make sure that stays there. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't take 500,000 acres around it to keep that way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is just government taking our land, and I am against that.
Mm-hmm.
The NCA, as it is written, to me, seems to make sense. So I just think that is something that we should not allow to happen, that we, the people, should not allow to happen. I do have an interesting story about the Dolores River, though.
Okay.
I was fly fishing down there. This is probably, 6-7 years ago. And I was standing in the river, and I'm throwing a fly, and as it's drifting, I notice something moving, and I'm looking across the river, and I'm looking, and my fly now drifts down, it's dragging, and I'm looking, and all of a sudden I realize it's a rattlesnake.
Oh.
Swimming across the
Oh.
river.
Oh, no.
Right
And I would
towards
be
me.
swimming out of there really fast.
And so, based on the fact that I fear God and snakes in that order, as that came up, I was whacking it and finally changed directions and went over there. And when I got out of the water, I went that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my last time
I
fishing
wouldn't
on
have
the Dolores.
even whacked it. I would have been running.
I wouldn't have wasted
You
the
would have walked on water.
I would have walked on water. You would have seen it. That's how scared I would have
Second
been.
time in history,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Anyway, yeah, I think we have to be careful with that as far as the tribal issues go. I think they have some rights there.
That kind of worried me a little bit when I first heard about that, because that seems to be the one thing that we, as white people, do, is oppress the Indians even further than what they already have been. I mean, we did enough damage a long time ago.
Before my time.
Yes,
Sorry.
before mine as well.
Mm-hmm.
Almost.
I think I was 4.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah. So again, that's what we understood when we had a representative of the Halta Dolores. That's a President Biden decision, that he can just come in with a stroke of a pen and say that's what we're doing. So how again do we stop these type of operations? The local city council doing something, the president doing something that is
Just
beyond
writing
their
their own ticket.
scope. As individuals, what do we do?
You're not going to like this answer. Government has become so powerful that it basically does what it wants to do and says, there, what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do anything about it. We are mad, we complain, and we write Facebook posts, and we talk about it to our buddies having a beer, and we send emails to friends and say, can you believe the government did this? And yet we don't do anything about it. Our founders gave us the Second Amendment for a reason. And I know that's being pretty bold.
Indeed.
But the Second Amendment was given to us to push back on tyrannical government. Our government is becoming tyrannical. Now, do not take that to mean that I believe we need to have some armed revolution or civil war or anything. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that if our government disarms we the people as they are attempting to with gun control, that will get worse.
It will indeed.
The tyranny of our government will get worse. That is something that most people don't remember from their U.S. history classes is that back in our times of revolution, when we founded this country, we revolted because we had a tyrannical government that we were under the power of with England.
Right.
And if you ask people what was the revolution about, and people go, well, I don't know, say there was actually even a saying about it, and they'll go, what was that? And say, no taxation. And they, oh yeah, no taxation without representation, because we were being taxed by England on goods and services that were produced and done here in the colonies. Okay, there's another thing that was happening at that time that most people don't remember, and that is that England was trying to institute gun control in the colonies because they recognized that the colonists were getting antsy over this tyrannical treatment, and they did not want the colonials to be able to fight back. Fast forward. Explain to me, what nation's government would want to take its citizens' guns away from them unless that government was thinking of doing something for which its citizens would shoot them?
Quite a thought.
So, what's happening with our government now, they do things, and we can't do anything about it. Actually, we can. But at some point, we have to be able to tell our government, if you don't stop, we're going to fight.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I know that sounds pretty heavy-handed, but if we don't get them to understand we have the ability to fight back against this, they will continue to do it. I don't want to do this. I don't want to fight. I'm telling you that.
What about the Convention of States? Would that help take care of it?
It could. Is that the 25th Amendment?
No.
Article 5, right?
It's Article 5 where you get the Convention of States, but it's adding an amendment to the Constitution. It would be 28.
28, okay. But the Convention of States, as I understand it, would get the states together, and they could override the federal government if there was enough of a vote by the states to do so. Is that
which
how
would be
that
more by the people, wouldn't it?
Right.
It's actually, and you're right, it would be state legislatures, and they have 3 things that they're working on to put into an amendment that would have to have the approval or ratification of 3/4 of the states.
Right.
And that it wouldn't have anything to do with the governor or Congress or the president. And they have it all written out, and so each state has to pass the same 3 things.
In essence, each state votes.
It brings the
For lack of a
control
better
back to
term,
the
right,
state rather
right.
than the fed.
Right.
I think yes, and my understanding of exactly how that works, yes, that could work. I think in practice, trying to get that to happen would be pretty problematic because it's a huge undertaking to get. Just think of how hard it is just to get 3 or 4 of your friends on
Right.
on board to do the same thing at the same time.
Exactly.
But yes, in theory, yes. In practicality or in practice, I'm not sure.
I would think that would be much more palatable, though, than packing your guns.
Oh,
I mean, you know,
we have to
see.
exhaust every avenue before there is some sort of a physical confrontation. But again, don't understand. I'm not saying that I want to go to war against our government, not even kind of. But do understand that that is why our founders gave us the right to keep and bear, was not so we could go hunting, not so we could go target shooting, not even so we could defend our homes. They gave us that Second Amendment to, if in the worst case scenario, we needed to push back on tyrannical government, and if our government doesn't stop shoving stuff down our throats, it's something that could happen. I don't want that to happen. I've got 7 grandkids. I don't want them to grow up in some sort of a revolution or, it would be a civil war at this point, because you'd have 2 large factions fighting each other, and then it would reset to whoever won. If the can gets kicked down the road another 6 or 8 generations, then you would have this little tiny ruling political class. You would have the great masses who are the slaves to provide the lavish lifestyle for that. And then you have what's called revolution. And that's when you get the guy standing in front of the tank with a pitchfork. Yeah. They're starving anyway. They might as well fight. I don't want to see those things happen in this country, but our government has to start realizing we have the capacity to push back. They better understand that. And I know that's heavy, but that's real.
No, it's
just real.
What we want to hear is the honest truth.
You're going to hear that from me, I assure you, whether you like it or not, or y'all like it or not.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one reason why you're here, is because we want to get that across to the people, that you are a different sort of a candidate when it comes to our Congress.
You mean I'm not a politician?
You're not a politician.
Or I don't sound like one?
No, you don't.
No. You had a couple of things that you had said earlier to us regarding, that you have been a conservative for a number of years, and how people could find out what you stood for and who you are based on what they could look at that's available to them. And what would you suggest?
Thank you. I mean, that's if y'all want to know what I believe and have believed for a long, long time, what I've been very vocal about, you can look at a couple of things. I have a YouTube channel that I started like 3 years ago, long before I ever considered doing this. And it is called A Common Sense Patriot. It's a YouTube channel. I think I did 12 or 14 videos on that, and those will tell you a lot about what I believe and think and my opinions on things to determine whether I'm really a true conservative or not. And you can look at my Facebook, my personal Facebook. I have posted for years many things on that Facebook that are very conservative, and or
stand behind it.
And I stand behind it. Or you can ask anybody that knows me whether I'm conservative or not. I am staunchly so. I believe in America. I believe that we are being destroyed intentionally. I believe that's being done so that socialism can be shoved down our throats. Think about this. If our economy is thriving, if our culture is solid, if people are getting along, and the government comes along and says, hey, we're going to do socialism now. You're just going to have to rely on the government for everything. We'll take care of you. People would say not only no, but hell no. But if they get our culture down, they remove God from our culture, which they are doing as fast as they can. They remove the reliance on family unit and the family from our culture, which they're doing as fast as they can. And they destroy our economy by, for example, not accessing our own natural resources, but buying them from other countries and paying exorbitantly for that. And we get $4 gas and $5 diesel. That's going to make everything really, really expensive. I mean, you all know, you go to the grocery store. How's that going for you? Right? You go to put gas in your car or diesel in your truck. How's that going for you? It's all of this is intentional so that they can say, here's socialism. We have to fight against that. One of the reasons that they are constantly stirring the pot on this racism stuff is to keep us focused on fighting with each other as opposed to looking at the government to see what they're doing. Divide and conquer, you've heard that before? Keep us divided. That's the intent of this. Man, I grew up, some of my best friends in my life have been brown and black. I could care less what color someone's skin is. That makes no difference at all. And it shouldn't to anyone else. You're either a good person or you're a schmuck. That's what should make a difference, and that has nothing to do with your race. Period. But our government wants to keep us at each other's throats while they are working to destroy our culture and our economy, and they will then want to take over and rule us as subjects, as slaves. By the way, an armed man is a citizen. An unarmed man is a subject. Remember that.
Well, you've been watching Mesa County Compass. This is the facts as we see them, the truth as we know it. You decide.